Hey folks, welcome back to Canada's Boxing Channel. I hope everyone's having a good day and enjoyed yesterday's boxing. I have to say, overall, I thought it was a little disappointing I don't want to be too critical. I thought that the Frank Warren show was a little underwhelming, shall we say. I was sort of expecting more overall. There were fights that I sort of enjoyed. I mean, I quite liked the main event. I very much didn't like the Adelaide TKV. I certainly didn't like the way that the ref caused that controversy at the end. Some of the prelims were, fun to watch, but Delicious Ore's debut against a guy who, honestly, I mean, what can one say, was underwhelming as well. So overall, I'm feeling a little bit let down, to be honest with you. I was expecting something a bit better. And likewise, coming to the subject of this video, the Richard Torrez Jr. Guido Vianello fight, I was hopeful that it would be something more than what was on display. Now, I picked Guido to win this fight. I thought that Guido, with his experience, particularly his beating of Makhmudov and the split decision with F.A. Ajagba, would prove to be too much for Richard Torrez Jr. And I was incorrect on that. Guido Vianello, I won't say he didn't come to fight, because that doesn't sound right, and it's not right. But he showed that he didn't have any kind of inside game. He started hugging early on. And in fact, he was deducted a point in, I think it was the second round, for hugging. I was expecting more from him, to be perfectly honest. He did not seem as though he brought all of his boxing tools with him. There were moments in the fight that were okay, moderately exciting, but there was periods of the fight where, honestly, I was thinking, this is not the fight that I wanted to watch. And I watched it, quite late, or very late for me. And I thought, okay, I'm going to sleep on it before I make a video about it, because, I don't want to be always so negative, right? Like I was negative about TKV and Adelaide fights yesterday, and I thought, there's too much negativity isn't really good for us as people, and probably isn't very good for you guys to watch. So I thought, okay, I'll sleep on it, and then, revise my thinking in the morning. But it's hard, because I really don't think that Vianello showed us everything that he's capable of. And so I was disappointed. I'd actually predicted, of course, Vianello to win, and I'd put a few bucks on Vianello to win, though I actually did have one other bet where I had Torrez as part of a parlay, so I kind of broke even on the fight, as it were. Now, as for Torrez is 6'2", 230, so he's a bit small in the land of giants heavyweights that we currently have. And he actually looked against Vianello like a cruiserweight fighting a heavyweight. And I'm wondering if heavyweight is the right division for him. Now, if the Bridgerweight division had taken off and we had lots of, smaller heavyweights in that Bridgerweight division, and Bridgerweight was making, people good money, etc., so forth, then I would have no hesitation in saying, ooh, Richard Torrez should be a Bridgerweight. However, Bridgerweight seems to be a bit of a damp squib, doesn't it? And I'm not sure if taking 30 pounds off and fighting as a cruiserweight is where Richard Torrez needs to be at. He's sort of fallen between two stools, if you know what I mean. So it's probably, financially and prestige-wise, better for him to stay in heavyweight. but he is a wee bit small, and I'm not thinking that he needs to just put an extra 10 or 15 pounds on. He's just a wee bit small, given today's type of heavyweights. Like, he's shorter than Alexander Usyk, and he's a little bit lighter than Alexander Usyk, and Alexander Usyk is thought to be a bit small. But, things may change. We might see the heavyweight division come back down to that smaller thing. But anyways, it's just an observation. Torrez, an Olympian, silver medalist. Actually, Guido was an Olympian as well. Didn't win any medals. Again, the lack of boxing skills struck me as it was at a lower level than you would expect from somebody with such a prestigious amateur background. Now, I know somebody will say, yeah, what about Deontay Wilder? He had a bronze medal and he couldn't box to save his life. And you would be wrong. I'm not going to argue with you over that. But one generally thinks of Olympians as having a higher level of boxing pedigree. And Richard Torrez Jr. doesn't seem to have that. To be fair, however, he's only 25 years old, so he's got time to graft skills on. He's a swinger. He's a guy that comes in. He's a come-forward fighter. He's sort of in that Rocky type fellow, swinging. He doesn't seem to have much in the way of defense, which, if he's to proceed in this division, will be a self-correcting error, as he'll find himself staring at the lights more often than not. So he needs to get some defense going. He's game, absolutely game. Both fighters were game. It's just that they seem to lack a lot of skills, to be honest with you. So it was scrappy. That's the word I'm looking for. It was a scrappy fight. There were moments which were, worth watching, and then there were periods of time where you were thinking, again, the lack of what I will call an inside game seems to be a plague on heavyweight boxing at the moment. One of my subscribers, Lee, has been saying the same thing. If we were to have a time machine and bring back some fighters from yesteryear, they would clean up because they had inside game, where today it seems that that's something that's in the main missing. So this fight, which was for the IBF North American Heavyweight title, the North American Boxing Federation Heavyweight title, and the WBO North American Boxing Organization title, all three of which were vacant, was eventually won by Torrez on unanimous decision. And I think that was the right call to make. The scorecards were wide. And again, I think that's fair, to be honest. They could have been it was 97-92, 98-91, 98-91. I mean, if you were a big Guido Vianello fan, could you say 96-93? Possibly, but probably 97-92 seems about right. I thought 98-91 was just a little wide, but I'm not going to quibble with it, really. It was clear, a unanimous decision, and it was clear that, in my book, the right man won. And I'm just a little disappointed overall, really. The quality of the fight, Guido definitely disappointed me. I was expecting more from him. Torrez fought. You can't really criticize Torrez. What you can say about Torrez is that he needs more seasoning. And he needs to spend some time on defense, and he needs to figure out a few key things before he can, truly speaking, proceed. I'd be interested in seeing him against Jared Anderson, if we want to say, keep it within North America. And I mean this respectfully, he's being touted as the future of United States heavyweight boxing. if that is the case, then I think we're going to be waiting quite a while before we see United States of America domination of heavyweight boxing again. At one time, of course, the US was the dominant country. I think those days are, well, certainly they're long gone, but they'll be a long time coming again if we're looking at Richard Torrez Jr. as being the future of US heavyweight boxing. I'll leave it there. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for commenting. And most importantly, have a fabulous day today. Cheers. Thanks. Bye-bye.